Greetings, this is the Timeshare Traveler. Today is episode 177. Are timeshares a scam? Well, I'm going to talk about the overview here. So why are timeshares considered an exam? I'll go through the reasons I know and have heard about. And are timeshares worth the upfront costs? So I'll talk about that, about how you determine the value of a timeshare. And then I've got an example of a payback of a purchase. And then my next topic is I'll talk about how to make sure that you get more value than your maintenance fees. In other words, ongoing, it continues to be of value to you. And then lastly, my kind of personal rules to make timeshares worth buying. Okay, but before I go into the details, I'm going to tell you a little bit about my channel, then I'll be right back to go into those details. Hi, this is Cliff, and I'm the Timeshare Traveler. Welcome to my channel. The purpose of my channel is to educate those who love traveling in timeshares. I've been an owner for 15 plus years at timeshare ownership. I have elite ownership with Marriott, Hilton, and Worldmark. I have published over 100 timeshare video reviews, and I've published over 95 timeshare tips. I can be found on Facebook at Timeshare Trav, at Twitter, Timeshare Trav, and on the web at www.timesharetraveler.com. So, I'm back. Let's talk about why timeshares are considered scams. And I think the bottom line is expectations are set in the sales presentation about how easy and how great it is without any discussions of the work that you have to put in. So the whole setup from the beginning, in my opinion, is made to sound too good to be true. And it starts with the high pressure sales. Of course, they tell you how great it is, and then why wouldn't you want it, and you almost begin to feel stupid. They play on your emotions. You feel stupid not to buy. How could I not know this? And then at the end of the day, sometimes when those sales presentations and people reflect on them, they don't feel like they were told the truth. But again, I think it's more of setting expectations about how great it is without being upfront about how much work it is to use them. I think next biggest thing I hear is maintenance fees required even if you don't use the timeshares. And people are saying I'm stuck with this like a boat anchor for life. People don't complain about paying rent for their whole life. They need a place to stay. But again, this is probably because timeshares and vacations in general are luxuries, so it doesn't fit in the same bucket as rent or food. The other thing is they're hard to cancel. There are a lot of companies talking about how they'll get you out of it, and I think they just end up costing you more money. I've actually not talked to them, so I can't speak with experience there. The one thing I also think is true because of the setup of how great they are and how easy it is to do is I actually find timeshares not hard to use, but there's a lot to learn, and so there's a lot to gain by learning. But the rules are complex, and reading through it can be a lot of details, and there's a learning curve there, and it can be frustrating in the beginning, and some people never get beyond the beginning, so it ends up being frustrated, which is why timeshares can be considered scams. And it also requires planning, and a lot of people would prefer I just want to get on, like they want it to be as simple as booking an airline ticket, and it's not. There's more rules, more complexities, and more things to take advantage of. And you can't always get what you want. That's also a lot of things what I hear. And so it does feel like a scam. Again, it's back to the beginning. I was promised all this stuff, and it's actually more work than I thought. And maybe they can make things simpler, but I think the rules, because it's real estate and more complex than that, I think that's why it is. But I think there's a mixed match from the beginning. So that's why I think some people consider timeshares scams. But let me talk about how you can sort of get past that and begin to see the value. And now for my next slide, are timeshares worth their upfront costs? Bottom line is, how long does it take to save money equal to the purchase price of your timeshare? At the end of the day, once you start to sort of feel like, I'm saving money every vacation I take, so this money I invested was worth it, then it doesn't feel like a scam. But if you can't figure out how to do that, then you're left with the feeling that I got taken. So my experience has been 7 to 10 years, and I have an example here that's closer to 10 years, and I'll explain. I just used a very simple one. I didn't try to maximize anything or pick any special periods that would be high demand. So the simple calculation is go on the Hilton website. I'm using Hilton Grand Vacations just as an example because it's easy. go on there and try to rent it as if you were booking it like a hotel, which you can do. And that's what the non-owner would do. And then determine the maintenance fees for an owner. And I'm just using a 1-bedroom, 1 week in the peak season, so it's pretty simple. I have my maintenance calculation that I have, and that's what my cost is. And you compare those two, and what the owner would pay, you subtract that from what the renter would pay, and that difference, you take the purchase price and that difference, divided those two numbers, and that'll tell you how many years it takes for you to pay it off. Then you sort of make a decision: do I really want to get into something like this for that many years or more? The or more, which is where I am, is when you're getting the payback beyond what you put into it. So here's my example, and again, I used real simple math, and I didn't pick anything like, say, I had no Christmas vacation, because the points are the same for Christmas as they are other times, but harder to book. So I just picked a sort of normal date, not even in the middle of winter. So my assumption was Hilton Grand Vacations purchase was $18,000 net for a 1-bedroom, 7,680 points. And that net means after the free weeks, they give you the bonus points and any other discounts they would give you. That's a reasonable number. Probably could be a little more, could be a little less, depending on the situation, where you might be buying, the deeds you're getting, and so forth like that. But I just tried to pick something that I thought was a middle of the road. So the cost to rent, the Ocean Tower in Waikoloa, March 3rd to 10th. Again, it's not January and February when all the people from the cold states are coming to Hawaii, and it's a little higher price. It's not Christmas. It's not summer with all the kids and everything. Those would be higher rates that you'd have to rent it. But the maintenance fees are the same. It takes a little more effort to plan during the higher seasons, but the maintenance fees are the same. So this is probably I don't want to call it a worst case scenario, but from a payback perspective, but I think it's probably not it's always easy to do version. This is more, if you're comfortable with this, probably in general you're going to be okay. So the maintenance fees, for using my cost per point, it's $1,162, and I add in the resort fee because that's not included when you use a timeshare, whereas when the rental, that price included the resort fee which is $40 a day for the Ocean Tower. So the difference between A and B, the savings is $1,935, and since I paid $18,000 and I divided by my savings of $1,935, it's a little bit over 9.3 years to pay off the purchase. So we're a little close to 10, but that's because I picked kind of the run-of-the-mill time. If I'm doing Christmas every week and I'm willing to plan right up to the minute and do it, then I'm going to get a better payback. Or in the middle of summer, 4th of July, and I'm able to get those things, so you're going to get a better payback. But I picked probably one of the easiest time to book, and one of the hardest times to get an ROI. And even with that, you're just a little bit under 10 years using my numbers. And again, these are my estimates. They're, I think, reasonable, and probably you can probably find people to disagree, but I think they're fair. Next up is how to make sure you get more value than your maintenance fees. And it's a little bit redundant because some of the same calculations are the same ones that you would do when getting the payback. So here's the bottom line: you must use it. Don't waste it. You have to make a commitment to use it. Otherwise, the value it actually goes away, because you're basically paying for something and not using it. So it's sort of like having stuff in storage that you haven't used for 30 years, but you've been paying for storage for 30 years. Kind of been better off probably to have gotten rid of everything. You probably could have bought it with the cost of storage that you paid. So again, calculate the savings, the same numbers. Figure out what the cost is to rent from a non-owner, subtract what it costs for your maintenance fees, and that's kind of an ongoing what you're doing. And I've had situations where it cost me like $200 for a week for a studio in Myrtle Beach, right on the ocean, in January, and it still costs about over $800. So that's like a 4-to-1 ratio versus the one I was showing is only a 2-to-1. And I've been in places where people are paying $500 a night and I'm paying $120 a night in my maintenance. So you can find those as examples. I just don't like to use them, other than they're a bit odd. Mostly I like to think, at least if I get 2-to-1, if the rent's twice what I paid, then I'm sort of getting payback on my maintenance. I don't like to cite the corner case that's the best deal possible. And again, my experience is that my costs as an owner are always lower than a renter, and I'd say almost I rarely can think of a time when it wasn't at least half the cost of what it was for a renter. So that's just my experience, and that's how to make sure. That's the same calculation as the return on investment on the purchase, but just ongoing beyond that. Okay, now the last thing is, what are my rules to make sure timeshare is worth buying? This is kind of past the sniff test kind of things. Timeshare are a luxury, and as are all vacations. So this is not like rent. You have to pay rent. You don't have to have a timeshare. So you should think about, is it worth it? Because it's really a luxury. It's like when you buy a car, you buy a luxury car, or you buy just what you need for transportation. And that's the same conversation. This is just a luxury, so treat it like that. The second thing is, always use your timeshares. Otherwise, you're going to feel like you got taken advantage of because it's a luxury. Use the luxury, or because it is a use or lose it proposition. Learn all the rules using your timeshare. The more you know, knowledge is power, and the more options you can do. I can actually stretch my points way beyond the numbers I've been giving you because I know all the rules, and I've shared some of them on my channel as well. I get extra vacations using RCI for $40 a night, in many cases. I treat ownership as money. The maintenance fees is money. It costs me money, so I need to spend it wisely. I don't just frivolously spend it, even though it is a luxury. But I do consider that it's the more I get out of it, the better I feel about what I'm doing. The more luxury I can have in my life, I guess, is the way I look at it. I don't do loans because having a loan is another cost, and it would increase your ROI because you now have loan payments. And so I kind of think of this as I personally think you should buy them with cash and not have a loan, because they charge high rates, 15-18%. You can refinance them and all kinds of things, but it's still another loan, and it's just another cost to add on top of that. In fact, I think that's one of the reasons when people end up not paying cash, then the ROI with the loan, it's the maintenance fees plus the loan, it's hard to get to the point where you're actually paying back the money you made, because you're just really covering maintenance fees and the loan. So I think that's one of the challenges that some people have. And the other thing is, timeshares are not an investment; they're a luxury. They're like a car; they go to zero. They do not appreciate this, even though it's technically real estate. It is not an appreciating asset, and going into it thinking it's going to get better. Now, I will say this. My maintenance fees don't go up as fast as it seems like the rental rates. And so my purchase price is lower than people that are buying now. So I would have bought below $18,000 when I bought, because I bought it quite a few years ago. So that they are more expensive to buy. So in some ways I'm getting more savings over time. But I try not to look at it that way, because I don't want to sugarcoat it. I don't want to make it say, hey, hang on to it in 20 years. Your return savings on versus renting is going to be so much better. That's not the reason. I want to be pretty straight. Anyway, I hope this video helped. Please don't forget to give it a like, and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. Happy timeshare traveling.